Oh, that was an abrupt cut. Hi, everybody. Welcome to
That's
the
the very
Q&A
start,
stream.
right?
I
Yeah.
have no idea how to start streams. I'm your host, Peanuts. Not my real name. That'd be unfortunate. And joining me today, we have Patrick.
Yo, I'm Patrick, lead designer on
Thank you, Feng.
And we also have Justin.
Hey guys, I'm Justin. I'm one of the product managers on DBD, responsible for strategy and planning for events, archives, and systems.
All right. Before we get started, I also just want to say thank you to the mods in chat.
Nothing to say yet.
Now, right off the bat, we have some news and announcements. We're going to talk about the thing that's already popping up in chat from time to time. Patrick, do you want to talk to us about Circle of Healing?
I would love to talk to you about Circle of Healing. It's getting a nerf in the next patch.
So remember, I don't want to pause too much, but I don't want to miss anything as I'm talking. I did say they'd do something big. So my assumption were they'll do something big, but it's not too big. Apparently this only takes 2 seconds off healing speed or something, which I don't think it'll really matter too much. I mean, it's 2 seconds, but I don't think it matters in the grand scheme of everything. Like, just the infinite healing is the strength. The continual just blessing totems over and over and over again, multiple of them on a map, etc. They're the things what are the problem. Not really the heal speed. Heal speed is one, but it's one of many, right? But I did say that they would address something big. This is the one. This is why they keep going to it and they keep talking about it. And then they also answer a question later on regarding this, but now they can say, no, we're not going to do that because we've done this, you see? So this is kind of we're doing it, look, we are doing something, and then they ignore anything else to do with it seems like. So I did predict something like this, and I'm not surprised that this is the first thing, bang, massive full screen, right? I did expect something like this. I didn't know what exactly it would be, but I knew it'd be something quite big, what they needed to address, and I do believe this is definitely something they need to address.
So, hey, look, numbers on the screen. That's great. Now I don't need to remember them. Bumping it down at tier 3 from 100% down to 70%.
But apparently, can anyone say for like a fact, is this 2 seconds less? That's it. Just 2 seconds more time to heal. Is that all it is?
Again, if we deem it worthy.
Awesome. Already answered my question. I don't even have to ask if it's not enough. So with
the volume,
said,
it's on max.
We also have grade rewards being increased for next month. Justin, do you want to say a couple things
okay,
about that?
I can do this.
Sure. So I'm pretty excited that we're actually finally getting around to this because I know
do
when we
that.
launched with the grade rewards, they were a little lower than I think what a lot of players were expecting. I think you were able to get a total of 500,000.
And now they're going to do the smaller nice ones, which I said they would do as well. This is this is another nice thing. It's not massively meaningful, but it's nice and it's something that we wanted, right? We wanted a bit more blood points.
BP if you got the highest grade for both roles. So what we were waiting for is just evaluate, see how many players are actually getting there. What the actual progression data was looking like, just to make sure that it's actually worth it.
So now it's 2 million instead of 1 million.
I think these new values that we've actually come up with are much more rewarding for players, and we're also giving you more of an incentive to, go up from one part of a grade to another. So like, let's say if you're in Ash 4, you're not going to be stuck with the same reward for all of Ash. You're going to go up get a little.
Was it 250?
And then going from that to the next one,
so they've
it's
tripled
much larger jump. So like you feel like your time's actually worth it, and just reaching Iridescent 1 on any roll, it's going to get you 1 million BP. So if you get Iridescent 1 on both, I mean, it's 2 million in BP you could be getting per month. I think that's pretty damn cool. I want to just go. It's a lot. I think it's really cool to be investing into your characters. I know we always need BP for characters, and that's why we're also trying to give out a lot more, to however we can through promo codes, through events.
It talks about something
how we got
interesting.
To a lot of these numbers, like we're just taking time looking at, how much BP are players actually using during the season, how much are we actually getting as the rewards over the time, so like over how many number of matches you're playing,
about all going over the cap.
The numbers, it didn't feel right to us in terms of how much time players were taking, so we ended up kind of, I would say, tripling the overall values, and so by doing the different segments and thresholds for different grades, I think it ends up looking even much better.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's probably worth noting there as well, just because I saw it in chat. It's 2 million, right? If you get Iridescent in both,
exactly.
That goes past the cap. So there is the 1 million point blood point cap. If you get that 2 million, it's.
Have they actually said why there is a blood point cap yet? Is it literally just so you do waste some blood points and have to spend them at that time?
going to go past the cap. Can't earn any more after your
I'm
pass
assuming that.
suspended. But
He
don't,
gets the
don't panic
cheaters.
that you're not going to get
I
them.
believe, I might be wrong, but I believe cheaters can already go past the cap anyway.
Points.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, I think any BP we give you as gifts or rewards that, let's say you don't have control in collecting, they're always going to go past the cap. Don't worry about it.
All right. One last thing we got to touch upon before we start the Q&A. There's a blood rush going on right now. It ends tomorrow at 11 a.m. So play some games, get some points. Now, before we start, I just want to say we get these questions from Twitter and the forums.
Cheaters can easily
These
pass
are the
the
most
cap,
upvoted
yeah.
questions. So if you're wondering how we pick them, that's how. So diving straight in. First
I heard
question is
someone
from
mention about
Kiss My-
this, you know, regarding the questions and stuff. People, us as a community, need to start upvoting more important questions to ask. Because if they are actually looking at the most upvoted, that's on us to get that to them, by the way.
Mutton, and they ask, will there ever be base kit borrow time or
Oh,
Decisive
this
Strike?
is it already? All right, so I know about this. So it's very interesting. He insinuates. I mean, I've seen
tunneling, and
this.
camping.
I remember ish. I don't remember everything, but he
We
insinuates.
have no plans to make Decisive Strike base kit.
Okay.
Look at
Decisive
it. Look at
Strike
his.
to address tunneling and camping.
We have
Look here. It's like almost smiling, kind of like cheeky. Like he knows what he's doing.
no
here. Look.
plans to make Decisive Strike base kit.
Okay. I noticed you only mentioned Decisive Strike there. Do we have anything at all planned for base
Again.
kit?
We have no plans to make Decisive Strike base kit.
Okay. People are
Smirking.
definitely going to pick that apart, but you know what?
I could see it. Oh, it's going higher, even higher there.
So the next question
To the
comes
side.
from MX Zan.
So he's he's not saying, but he's insinuating that they're thinking about having borrowed time as base kit, which makes sense because it links to them saying that they want to fix camping. Once again, not understanding that killers are camping because they're not feeling as able to go for loads of chases. So it's this full kind of, you're creating the mess and then you're trying to solve the mess with something else, which is going to create even more. Like, I don't think it's the best way of doing it, but whatever. I do think he's probably going to do that. They probably are going to add borrowed time as base, thus giving survivors a meta perk and 5 perks. So they get 5 perks now. They get the meta perk as the free one, and then 4 more, and then obviously there's 4 survivors, so they get 20 perks in total. The killer gets 4. It doesn't seem too smart, but it looks like that's what they're doing.
Who asks, when's Switch cross progression coming?
So I think this one's definitely popping up a lot.
If you want people to
so
stop
it's
camping,
good that, you know,
remove
we can
God
be
roots.
addressing
If you
it.
want people to stop
So we
camping,
put out a statement a
make
few
them
months ago,
believe that they can win
but
without doing it.
With all the technical aspects beyond our
Obviously.
control, transferring DLC between platforms has not really been possible. So we're
There'll
aiming
always
to
be
deliver
people
the best, most
camping,
consistent
even if they don't
cross-progression
need to be
experience
doing
we
it.
can.
But,
So unfortunately,
like,
like,
I'm
we're
even
not able to
starting to do
provide a
it
clear
because of
ETA
how
on when
little
we
I
can actually
believe
expect
that
it
I
for the
can win
Switch.
someone of the same
We're still
caliber.
trying to get things sorted out.
see?
And as soon as we have a more concrete date to share, we're certainly going to let you guys know.
Sounds good.
This guy's
We also
mustache is
have a very
triggering.
similar follow-up question from Dathy, who asks, is console cross progression coming?
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think this one makes total sense as a follow-up, because once you have it on one console, I think the question is...
Yeah,
well,
there'll
when's
always be
on
people
the
who
rest?
camp, no matter what they do.
So
But
it's going to be a,
if you
I'd say,
make the
similar
game
restriction, so it's not
more
for the time being.
accessible
It's
to
still
not
something
play that
we
way,
really
if you
want to
make
do,
the
like, we
game
all
where
play
you
on,
actually,
you know,
it's
a
more
lot of
viable to go
Switches,
for chases
PS,
like I
PS4,
do,
PS5s, Xboxes,
you'll have less campers.
and we'd love to be able to play on all of them. It's
There's
not something that we
genuinely
can promise
people
because
playing
it's
this game
not
right now who
solely
don't
our
enjoy
decision.
camping and slugging, who are doing it
Anything
because they don't
involving
want to
crossplay,
lose.
cross-progression, it's
I
a
was
lot
falling
of,
into
lot
that,
of gears moving at the same time,
that
so
kind
it's
of
just it
hole.
takes time to get it working.
But I realised I weren't enjoying
Yeah,
it, so
absolutely.
I've stopped.
Switching gears, we have a question from the King, who asks, will Boon
Here we go.
Totems be getting any...
So this is what I'm on about. So they showed that big Boon thing. Oh look, we're addressing the Boon, and I believe it's, let's see, circular healing, 75% healing over survivors, 8 seconds to 9.14, so 16 seconds to. Okay, so healing other survivors takes 1 more second, and healing yourself takes 2.5 seconds more. It's not enough. That won't be. That's not enough at all. But they've addressed it, so now they can just like be like, oh, we won't look at anything else, I believe, right? Because I think I remember this. So they're not going to give him any more change. Let's see, I can't remember.
I can't read.
Sorry, words
Why is this? Oh, is he just laughing at him messing up?
are hard, buddy.
Switching gears, we have a question from the King, who asks, will Boon Totems be getting any changes? I can't read.
Okay, I think he's just laughing at us.
Sorry, words are hard, buddy. Yeah, Boon Totems and their general mechanics aren't going to see any sweeping changes anytime soon. They're generally working as intended. They don't show, any significant signs of being overpowered or a problem. Again, overall.
What? I honestly feel that boons are massively game changing. That's why I joke about it saying the non-game changing boons. When boons are in, it feels like the kind of pressure you usually would cause from injuring a lot of people just dissipates. It just it disappears. It feels like the healing's so quick. And then you've also got the tactic where, let's say you've got a nice free gen and they've got a boon at the other side of the map. They can just keep running to that boon and just keep healing, coming back, hit and run for themselves, right? They can just do it forever. Usually they won't be able to do that. Usually they'd have to find a teammate and heal, or have to find a medkit and heal, or sometimes just risk it while being injured. They don't have to do that with a boon. So I disagree. I think it's a massively game change. Why do you think it's in most of the matches? It's become meta like overnight.
That said, I already talked about, circle of healing, right? And in that same vein, we are looking at each individual boon perk and, considering their individual balance. But boons, the overall system, it's not going to see any major changes anytime.
Okay, so he did mention circle of healing. So he's saying the other boons are okay and the boon system is okay. Just circle of healing might need looking into.
Yeah, so basically, keep an eye on him, but right now, nothing's planned for that.
Bingo.
Okay, next question comes from, actually, not a question. It's from Meme Dude. I'll just put it on screen. It was one of the most upvoted things, so I have to show it. I wish my teammates would hen rush, but they're too chicken, so.
Oh, God.
Heyo. There you go. Next question comes from Deadly Cobra, who asks, are there plans to fix the issue of dead hard validation having adverse effects on certain killers' powers?
Yeah, I mean, this is something we have to look at on a case-by-case basis with each power, so it's a little bit slow going. They're all on our radar, though. We are listening to what you guys are saying and calling these issues out. Very specifically, I can say things like the Blight's Rush attack and the Nemesis Tentacle attack and how those interface with Dead Hard. It's not as good as we want it to be, so we're looking at those individually, but yeah, case-by-case basis for stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So what I'm getting from that is, if you hit them with your tentacle, you still act as if you've hit them. You get the slowdown, but they don't actually get it, so they get more distance, right? So that's them actually thinking about the killers. Correct? Because that's what I get from that. Yeah, okay. Thought so.
Very similar follow-up question.
Yeah, very problematic.
I don't know if I can say this name on stream, but I'm going to say it anyway. Humperdinker asks, Hex Ruin was reworked because most killers used it in almost every match. Will Dead Hard be reworked?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we are looking at Dead Hard, right? It's a particularly tricky one because some of the friction with this perk comes from the design and some of it comes from the network and the technical implementation. Anytime you have something that's extremely time sensitive, I can't speak either.
I think Dead Hard, it probably does need reworking. It's really, really good. I think, and I've seen other people say this and I agree, it either needs to have iframes and not give distance, or have no iframes and give distance. That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's literally it. It gives both, and I think that's the problem. So no free distance, but you get iframes, so it's all about, is it going to hit now, right? And then obviously, I guess they would get the slowdown from the animation of it hitting or something, right? Something like that. Or just distance, so if you do actually hit them as they're doing it, they would actually go down. So there'd be no server validation on that because they wouldn't have iframes. It should give you distance, not invincibility. Yeah. It'd still be very strong with that, I think. I think it'd be weaker with the iframes.
In an online game,
because the distance is one of the big parts of it anyway.
A hit, you end up with something that can be negatively impacted by latency, network conditions, stuff like that. So we need to come at Dead Hard from both the design side and from the technical side. But that also means it's gonna take a while to kind of unravel it and get it to a place that everybody is happy with.
Yeah, they
I
just
already
need to
see
stick
some
with the
people happy in
iframes.
chat about that.
They'll still
Yeah,
be really good.
I
It'll
guess
still
the
be
other
meta.
question is, what aspect of Dead Hard are we really thinking about changing? Are we thinking about changing the way people use it for distance, or are we thinking more about the way people use it to dodge a hit?
Iframes.
Yeah, I mean, on the technical side, we're definitely looking at the hit dodging, how that functions, how the players experience it, how you get
Okay, thank you
feedback,
for the
right?
5
You
at
know
month.
that
Appreciate
hit
it, man.
got dodged, stuff like that. There's already some changes coming, I believe, in the upcoming patch, touching on the validation of it. It was in the PTB. From a game design side, we're definitely looking at it specifically in regards to the speed boost and how that can activate regardless of you dodging a hit. You know, it gives it a little bit too much utility beyond what we want Dead Hard to do. So that's another aspect. I don't have anything specific to say about what we're doing there, but those are like the high level aspects that we're investigating right now.
So again, you know, when I said before, this Q&A would address some things. This is a big one. This is showing like this definitely needs to be addressed, and it's nice to see they're actually thinking about it, because this is huge. I think Dead Hard's kind of is it a sleeper? Like I think it's kind of obvious how strong it is, but I don't know. Is it a sleeper to people? This impacts games massively, way bigger, maybe more than DS, honestly, or at least at the kind of same caliber. When you use it right, if you get a team who uses Dead Hard right, this impacts massively.
Right now.
All right, exciting stuff. Next question comes from Ots Darva, who asks, streamer mode, perk loadout saving, more settings in custom games. Can we expect these quality of life changes anytime soon?
So some of these are definitely coming sooner than later. I
Stream
don't want to give
mode
too much hope on when, but like we're looking at a laundry list
would
of
be
these
nice.
and some similar quality of life features for the future.
The problem with streamer mode is cheaters have programs which show who they're going against. So streamer mode won't do anything until that's fixed. But if they fix that and then they have streamer mode, that'd be amazing. Perk loadout it's such a minor thing. I'd rather them, work on more important things. But the streamer mode for old streamers
And
would be very
should
nice.
have more to reveal in the
Getting stacked
near
is not
to
fun.
mid future, I'll say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think it should take too long to
so
do that.
Chris asks, what happened to the early game mechanic you announced in the 4th anniversary stream?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this one.
Let me answer this. You realize that killers can just plaster fix it with corrupt, which would have been the same kind of thing, and you were just like, they can have free perks, right? That's what it feels like.
Last time we were on a Q&A, but
Because it literally
repeat it,
is
so,
corrupt intervention.
everybody gets
That's
to
what
know
an
it's
early
not
game
a
mechanic
secret.
is.
The short answer is that it's not going to happen. We're not doing it. The longer answer, which I will still keep relatively brief, is that we talked about adding an additional mechanic to the start of the game, but after discussions internally with the design team and going through a few prototypes, there wasn't any direct improvement.
Remember as well, I've played this game since beta, and I've heard all what they've talked about. I remember a lot of the changes, so I do have an insight into some of this stuff that some people might not if it came in later. They do talk about something about the early game collapse, and I'll say something about that as well, what I remember.
It actually made it worse. People weren't having fun. It was frustrating. So we kind of scrapped the...
A lot of the time when they say people aren't having fun, they mean Survivor as well. I hate to say it, but they are Survivor biased with a lot of their thinking, and it is because it's a 4-to-1. It's more of their player base. It's more of the customers. It seems like that's what they have to do. So when they say people aren't having fun, why won't the killer be having fun? Obviously, they're on about Survivors. Why would the killer not have fun with an early game mechanic?
The idea, it wasn't a good idea based off of our playtest. That said, some of those ideas have been recycled into
Also,
other
I'll
prototypes.
go one more. Oh, recycle, maybe that is corrupt potentially. I can't remember when they were talking about early game mechanic. I'll go one more. If they are adding borrowed to survivors, which I think they will, maybe giving corrupt intervention to killers as their 5th perk would actually be a good idea, because then at least the killer would have 5 perks with the one, obviously the early game mechanic corrupt intervention, and then the survivors would have their 4 perks plus the one, the borrowed time, which I think would be quite nice, and it'd show that they're trying to make it fair for both sides and fun for both sides. I don't know if they'll do that, but it does seem that that's the way I would probably go if I were putting borrowed time for the survivors. I would definitely be thinking about corrupt intervention for killers.
And those are seeing some traction. So there will be something, there's more. We are prototyping more things, just not an early game scenario like people have been talking about.
Yeah, the sad reality to sharing things sooner like that is that sometimes they don't make the cut.
Exactly.
So it's a big part of the reason why we don't give ETAs super early on. Next question comes from Jessica Ravane, who asks, would it be possible to change the SBMM system to be more skill-based and not based on kills and escapes? I know you could talk about
don't
this
think
all
it
day,
gets
so I'm
it.
going to cut you off if it goes too long.
Yeah, I've got some notes here, but I'm desperately trying to keep it brief. So I'll please understand I am simplifying some things here. Don't read too much into every detail I'm saying. I'm trying to keep this brief. But there's a common misconception that by using just kills and escapes to adjust your MMR, it's ignoring skill in the game. This isn't the
Okay, let's see how it isn't.
truth, though. This is false. Kills and escapes are proxies for skill, in that skilled play inherently leads to kills or escapes.
So face camping with Bubba is skill, because that's what leads to a kill. Camping a hook leads to a kill. Hiding and like we talked about this yesterday, where if you're in like a really strong three-man swift, like sure, the other three survivors will have to carry that one, but there can be one survivor who's really bad and just hides and then just escapes. That person was skillful as well. Like, no, they're not. Especially on the kill side. The kill side is even less, because at least with a survivor, you do need to have some teammates who are good. They need to be efficient on gens, they need to be efficient in chase, right? With killer, no. You can literally just face camp.
Think about sports, and I'll use hockey as an example because I'm Canadian.
And I know about this, and this makes no sense.
Wouldn't say they only count wins when placing teams in the standings, but they should also count shots on goal too.
It's not shots on goals though. A hook is actually a goal because you've done your one part of the objective. You've downed the person, you've put them on your hook, right? So this doesn't make sense. It's not shots. A shot would be an injure but not a down, right? Which doesn't reward you.
More skilled player takes more shots. And while that's certainly true, it's important to remember that shots lead to goals, which lead to wins. So you can kind of cut the middleman out there. And that's the key, right? Skilled play leads to wins. If they don't, are they really skilled plays? Right? If your skilled play doesn't get you to win, was it really a skilled play in the first place? Everything leads to the same place in DBD. Killing survivors or the survivors escaping alive. That's what MMR predicts. The chances of the killer killing survivors or them escaping alive. And it is actually very good at doing that. However, we're looking at some improvements to the current system. An example to take is to take team results into.
How do they calculate skill plays? I think going for hooks. I've said this for years, but I think going for hooks would be the smarter thing, because then you get to get an overall idea of how many chases and downs the killer has done, instead of because the scary thing is, if you're aiming for 2 kills, and I've said this many times, 2 kills right in DBD can mean the killer got 2 hooks all the way to 10 hooks. It's the same thing. It's the same outcome. You can kill 2 people with 2 hooks. You can kill 2 people with 10 hooks. The killer who got 10 hooks obviously played a lot better in that match than the person who got 2 hooks. Most likely they just face camped and done it. But you're not going to know that if the outcome is just kills. That's why I say go for hooks. And then you could go even further than that and see where the hooks were, like when the gens were done, because there's a lot of borrowed time hook bombing when all the gens are done at the very end, and that's where a lot of people get the hooks too. So it'd be good to get the data on how many hooks have they got at 1 gen, 2 gen, 3 gen, 4 gen, 5 gen, etc. To get more of an idea of what happened. So hooks, and then going a bit more in depth with how many gens were done with them hooks. And then you could even go into maybe chase times, but that's just keeping it as simple as possible with the hooks. I think hooks is the way to go, personally. Yeah, now people at higher more are just like trying to go for kills, and it's like 1 hooking, slugging, 2 hooking,
to account
camping,
for survivors
kind of
in
shit.
addition to the personal results. This takes some time. We have to iterate on. There's lots of fun math, which I could again talk about forever. But we need to prove it out that it's working, that there's value in it, and correlations, so on. More details on that more details on skill-based matchmaking in general.
I also think going just for kills is really dangerous to the game, and I've said this before, because they don't really have to address problems, right? Let's say everything's very, very unfair for this killer, right? Like all the loops are in the survivor favor. The killer can't get the survivor until they get to a dead zone. The survivor finally gets to a dead zone, so he just camps that survivor. That's one kill. They come, or actually, yeah, that's one kill, or nearly one kill, and then they come and try and trade. Or grab them and they mess up just one grab. Now you've got 2 kills. Now that person's got 2 kills, even though the whole map is completely unbalanced. They've still technically had a perfect game, right? 2 kills till escapes. If they had hooks, then you'd see they only got 2 hooks. Maybe something needs changed, right? Because now we're getting an average of 2 hooks on this map or 3 hooks on this map. This map, with this design, with these tiles, gets this amount of hooks. This map with these tiles gets this amount of hooks. You get more of an idea of how the map's playing and how many hooks each killer potentially can get. Each killer will have different types of hooks with how good the anti-loop is as well. With kills, you don't get any of that. It leaves out so much data. It leaves out so much data. It's so bad. This is why I kept talking, like when I talked with OTZ about hooks over kills. This is what I run about with hooks. Like if we force this game to look towards hooks, we're going to be able to balance the game way better, right? We're going to be able to balance this game way, way better if we aim towards hooks. We'll get way better data. Way, way better data. You could even... No, actually, no, it's going too far.
Actually, in our last dev blog post as well.
I'm going to try to say, like,
we have a
know
similar
where
question,
the hooks
or
were.
not directly similar, but pretty
No,
close.
don't matter about that.
From Jeff Alip, who asks, why don't hooks count towards your rating?
There you go. I forgot
this is a great example of what I was just talking about a minute ago, in a specific case that we did consider and look at and think about quite a bit. The thing with counting hooks is that you end up with weird cases that don't make sense when you take it to its extremes.
Right.
Say you're a killer who hooked every survivor twice, but
Very,
none of them
very
died.
fruitful.
If you count those hooks towards your rating, then you can easily end up in a situation where that scenario counts as a win, like moves you up the standings, but that feels weird. Did you really win? Should your rating go up and make you face stronger opponents, even though all of the survivors got out alive? Probably not, right? That's like an obvious
But the
like
thing
that.
is, he talks about these wins and losses, but you still get wins and losses with kills. You can get 2 kills, which counts as a win, but 2 people escaped and they won. Is that a win? Like, what they need to do is they need to kind of figure out what they want. Like, what kind of... How do they want the killer to play, I would say. I would say if you got... It's weird to just even trying to think of it, because it's a 4v1 as well, right? Where you are going to have the killer winning, where some survivors win as well. Like, both people are going to win. It's just trying to kind of work out what would be... You know, the ideal. That's the most extreme as well. Usually if you've got 8 hooks, it's more likely you've probably at least got 1 kill by then, because you've got so much pressure going, you've got so many downs going. And if you actually, also, if you do have 8 hooks and they all escape consistently, that kind of shows like a bit of an imbalance, because you're doing really, really good with the killer, right? You are constantly downing them, you are constantly putting them on the hooks, and they still got out, right? And if they did do that, and it was, let's say, completely balanced, at the very end, when you were supposed to get one of your last kills, you didn't get anyone, so you probably messed up at the end, right? So, in this extreme, you did really, really well, but then you couldn't finish it off at the end, right? But you still did very, very well all the way through. And he's having to use an extreme as well, which I dislike when people have to use massive extremes. I'm not bad, Paul. Patrick doing your head in. I don't know. I just think it's so much more healthy for the game going for hooks, and just he won't be able to sell me on, you know, kills are more important. He's incentivizing less skillful play and worse data gathering just because of this one extreme, what can happen sometimes. But let's say they all do escape and you did have 8 hooks. I think you've played fucking well. Getting 8 hooks, like say you're going against an insane like pro team or something, right? Which will never happen. But imagine if you got 8 hooks versus them. That's fucking insane. That means you got every survivor who knows the tiles amazingly 2 times. So I'd say that is really good. All they need to do is they just need to kind of create. I don't know. It's a hard one because they've kind of
really they've
created this kills for so long.
that would mean the survivors lost, but they all got out alive. So that feels weird to call that a loss on the survivor side, unless you start saying that everybody.
Well, they won as well. Just like when 2 die and then 2 escape, the 2 escaped won. Why would it just be?
In that situation wins. And then as soon as you can have everybody in a game winning, you get some really weird math, some really crazy stuff starts happening really, really fast. So that's part of why we boil it down to kills and escapes as a proxy for good play in the game. It solves all those problems, and it solves a whole bunch of other ones that I'm just not going to get into now, because I think we have like 1 or 2 other questions to
It makes it easier. It makes it a bit easier to do your MMR calculations. That's probably what he's saying. That's why a draw exists. Yeah, that could just be a draw, actually, couldn't it? If let's say, if you had 8 hooks and they all escaped, I don't know exactly what you'd class these things. First, you'd need to kind of do a lot of experiments. You'd have to kind of work a lot of stuff out. But I think going for hooks overall for data to understand kind of, you know, what killers are strong on these maps, these tiles, this, you know, etc., this MMR, is the important thing to do. These who wins and stuff, I think you need to work that out through that, right? I don't know how you'd do that. Let's think. So if you had 8 hooks, obviously that's really, really well played, but then everyone escapes. I think at very worst, that should at least be a draw for the killer, which isn't bad. But it doesn't incentivize them to do that. But then going for less hooks is a loss. I do kind of see where they're at with the kill thing. We're trying to score it. But I still am very, very confident going for hooks is way better data. I think it's because we think that a kill should be more important than hooks. I think that's where it kind of boils down to. 8 hooks or kills might have not tunneled and give everyone a fair chance, maybe. Getting 8 hooks is way, way more skillful than 2, 3, or 4, whatever. Any less hooks, right? What they're trying to kind of... It's more of a psychological thing, I think. Because when you've got someone actually dead, like they're gone, it feels like you've done more than if they've all 4 escaped. So it's like a psychological thing. But you've actually... If you have hooked way, way more... you've played a lot more skillful, right? You've played a lot more skillful, and the game's probably been more fun overall, right? It's been less camping, less slugging, etc. Not just debate if 4 sides can win MMR. Would have played the evolution to draws some over. Yeah, we all kind of going off on a bit of a tangent towards what would be, you know, classed as a win.
Because if both sides can
but
win,
we really
you end up in
don't even know what a
situation
real
where ranks just
win is.
endlessly climb, and
like
then
at this
eventually
point, do
the
we?
matchmaking system can't really give you a match because everyone's
The winning
someone
and
has or not
losing
winning.
has always been this big question in DBD.
Okay,
I'm
so
just
getting
sticking
into a
with
completely different
hooks
question, we
for
have a question from
good
Pulsar,
data
who
and
asks,
healthy
when is
gameplay. That's what I'm
60
sticking with, because
coming
it
to
goes too much on a
Xbox One,
tangent when I'm trying to
PS4,
think what a
and
win
low-end
would be.
PCs, as promised in this dev post from March of 2019.
This is a very fun elephant in the room, I would say. So I think we all agreed that roadmap was a little too ambitious and we weren't able to make it happen yet. Because that being said, we're still working on tons of optimizations.
Hooks per
The
minute
following
will be
notes
the
that I
best
have are a little
metric. Yeah,
more
that's
from the
not too
tech team,
bad.
so I'm just going to read it very verbatim. So basically, to hit 60 FPS, both the GPU and the CPU frame times need to be below 16 milliseconds. The good news is on the GPU side, we're already below that threshold. Now we just need to work on the CPU side of things. So in 2021, our efforts were focused on converting the old blueprint code to C++ and preventing things from happening off-screen when they're not needed. So this dropped
They
the
are
CPU
very
times
old,
from 27
technology,
milliseconds
yeah.
in January to 22 milliseconds in December
I talked about
2021.
this before regarding last-gen
So
consoles.
this year we're going to be continuing on the CPU side of things. In the upcoming mid-chapter, we actually have improvements for the nurse and skill checks. Then in the near future, we'll also have improvements for distant objects, off-screen objects, and other stuff that we can't even explain without going into too much detail, like
So just Hooks in
async
opinion,
loading into
it's
the
down
match.
to start playing it loose.
So
and,
we certainly missed the ETA. We definitely want to be improving it, but the dream is still alive. We're still working.
there's a
towards it.
psychological
Yeah,
thing
and I
going
don't
on
know
with the
how to even
kills,
begin
which is
explaining
problematic.
What async loading into the match means, but someone much smarter than me is working on that.
Yeah.
So one thing that we often see suggested
If they had
is,
it as like a
just
pain
adding
meter or
lower graphics
something
to
with how
combos.
much distress,
People
how
who
much
want a
pain
higher
you've
frame rate can
caused
opt
to
into
the
that. So
survivors,
why don't we do that?
it'd
Simply
make more
put, because
sense.
those
Even if they're
settings have more of an
escaping,
effect on the
they've had so
GPU
much
side of
pain
things than the
inflicted,
CPU
right?
side of things. So even if you did opt into those
But because
lower
this
graphics
kills
settings,
and escapes has
your
been
frame rate
ingrained
wouldn't
so
really change.
heavy,
So we're working on fixing that, but we don't have an ETA just yet.
it's harder to break out of, I think, for a lot of people.
The next question comes from a lot of different people. Hidden Blade, Lexicat, Jimbo Mason, and Iana Bean. They all ask, are there any changes underway for Bloodweb to...
I'm just thinking about it now. I'm just thinking about, like, they probably have to do something where the more hooks you get, the likelihood grows that you're going to get kills, right? I don't know what that would be, but that would be a way they'd do it where it progressed 2 kills by default from going for more hooks, right? So that's what I've just come up with in my head there. That's the way they would be able to do it and still fit that narrative of you need to get kills, because then you would get kills by going for hooks, because doing the hooks gives you an advantage than not going for more hooks, you see? So there you go.
Reduce the grind for perks.
That's what they'd eventually have to push into.
Yeah,
if they were going that route.
We've known that the
Most
grind
likely,
is a big
if
issue
they want to
in
push for
PvE,
kills.
and we know it is right now. It's not much fun.
That's what I'm
It's
saying.
not much fun. It's a pretty big grind. We're working on a way to dramatically improve this, and we'll hopefully have more to say about it soon, but not right now.
Heart monitors for Elden Ring. I was just testing it.
One thing that we've seen people ask is if the grade rewards are like a band-aid solution to that. They're not. We're not looking at that as a solution to the grind. That's
I've already
just an
talked about
increase
this,
to the
I know.
grade rewards, nothing more. We have a related question from Astrian, who asks, "Can we please have perk tiers removed?"
Yeah. So I've already said this on YouTube.
Straight up, we've got no plans
So,
to remove perk tiers. It is a topic that we talk about.
If they remove
internally.
perk tiers
It's
and
an
make every
idea that gets
perk
thrown around, but,
just
we
one
have no
tier,
plans to do it right
it'd take 10 years to get
we
back
have something else in
to
mind,
it.
but not removing
And
perk tiers.
they're acting like it's
Two
a
quick things
slow
about
kind of
perk
fix.
tiers. Yes, it would cut the grind in
There you
2
go.
thirds.
Yeah, 2/3.
But the grind grows exponentially every time new content is added. Not only are we adding
10
new
years,
perks
yeah.
to unlock, but we're also adding more characters to unlock those perks
So
on.
10 years.
So if we were to do so,
take
it would
10
only
years,
be
yeah.
a matter of time
Yeah, 10
before that
years,
grind becomes a problem again. The second thing is
To
that it's
get
actually
to
a
get
lot
back
more
to
work remove.
to get back to exactly where we are, it take 10 years, because it's been about 5 years. It's going to be 2 times that, then 10 years. So it take that long, and in that time they'd be able to look for other solutions as well. So it would actually be a really good thing to do. It'd give them a lot of time to do other things, so they don't need to answer this anymore. It'd help the grind. It'll give them 10 years time to think of another solution if they want to, if the game's even out still then, or still going, sorry. So it would be good, but now he says that it's hard to do. I don't know if it is. I've already
Tiers
talked
than
about this
just
before, though.
deleting them. And so if we're going to spend a bunch of time on a solution, we'd rather spend that time on a permanent solution, not something that's only going to be effective for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next question we have is from Pixel Bush, who asks, "Can we have some updated killer stats?"
Thus
Justin,
showing
can
why
people have stats?
going for kills is bad
I
data.
don't know, Dylan. Can they?
Well, I'm going to show them anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, I figure. I don't bother answering.
So there you go. These are stats from December 16th to January 16th for all the killers.
We've talked about this.
On
We've
the
talked
left
about these
side,
two
you
in the
will
last
see
video.
the
That's why I'm
average
not
kill rates
saying
for those killers. And
or trying to say
right
the same
a
stuff,
little
because
bit, you'll see the
I
little
literally
black
did
bar with the black
the last one.
numbers. Those are their pick rates, so how often they're used. These are for all ratings. These aren't for like just the high end of players or anything. So just note that there's a lot of nuance to these numbers that isn't necessarily shown in these statistics.
No, it's a bomb.
Like Nurse, for example, is not the worst killer in the game, even though she's low.
Yeah.
It's just an average. There's a lot of people playing her who probably don't know how to play her too well yet.
Yeah, it is always funny hearing that. This is the data we gather to balance killers. We know the very bottom killer isn't bad, but this is the data we gather.
Moving on, we have a question from Epic Warhog, who asks, will we ever see a match replay system where you can rewatch your own matches?
This would be amazing. I've talked about this before. It'd be good just to like see what your teammates were doing. Sometimes when you're playing solo, I've had games when I've played solo where, I'm not even kidding, I've been chased by the killer for like 2 to 3 minutes and done the first gen. I've legitimately had that done. Not all the time, but it's happened sometimes. It'd be very interesting to see what my teammates were doing, but also for a more kind of, what would I say, healthy, like health for the game way, you'd be able to report cheaters. At the moment, in my opinion, what it looks like is the only way to get rid of cheaters is you need to be streaming the game or recording the game and then send that record to the devs with the Steam ID, etc., etc., and then they'll actually get rid of them. With this, anyone could. They could just go into the replay, and you'd also be able to find subtle cheaters as well, much easier. If you were like, that felt a bit off, go into the replay and then see what they were doing, you'd be able to find them that way too. You'd be able to get rid of the more subtle cheaters. So this would be really good to get rid of more cheaters. I don't think they're going to do it, sadly. They say it's really difficult. Once again, I don't know how difficult it is. I know loads of games do have this. So I really don't know. I don't know if you need to design it for the game when it's being created, or if you could actually just implement it later on. I'm not sure. I haven't done my research on it. But all I know is this would be very, very good for the game. Not just for entertainment purposes, but health purposes too. It would be good for the health of the game.
So for this,
Chlorine, thank you
I
for
think
the
it's
prime.
gotta be a
Appreciate
kind
it.
of a
Thank
flat
you.
no, because as much as we'd love one, it's an extremely
LLP for the 200
technical
bits as well. Thank you, man.
undertaking. It's the kind of thing where you need the game to be made from the ground up to support this, thinking about it from the very beginning. And going on almost 6 years at this point in DBD's development. Well, just the amount of time that it's been live, really. It would be Herculean, like a
They only ban
ban
people if you have video evidence, Cheek. I'm pretty sure.
And there's a lot of other things we know that people are asking for that we can actually do and that we're looking towards.
Yeah, absolutely. Just wasn't designed with that in mind, so it's a lot more work to add it now than it would be if we designed the game with that in mind. Next question.
Look at you simplifying my answers.
Yeah, just quick summary. So, quick question from Tataru, who asks, "Is there any news to share about the Ghostface and Legion updates?"
The news is that they're in the pipe, and
Coincidentally, they've actually got, in my opinion, the two worst killers. What they are making stronger, maybe, hopefully. I do think Ghostface and Legion might be the weakest killers in the game. Clown's definitely up there, but not with Pinky Finger. He does have Pinky Finger. They are nerfing it, but it's still going to be all right. So, coincidentally, they have actually got the two worst killers, I believe, in the game. Ghostface is good when he's on an indoor map, but outdoor, no. He gets really hurt. And Legion is just mouse one,
And work is underway. To clarify, when I spoke about them during the last Q&A, the design to rework them hadn't actually been completed and approved yet. Contrary to what some
Are you saying Twins question mark is the worst? Twins definitely not the worst. Twins can slug a whole team. Just if you allow a Twins to injure your whole team, you can just go down and then just get one hooked. Maybe for hooks though. Maybe for hooks, but she's getting reworked, isn't she?
people might say, when we undertake a killer update, there's actually a lot of research and planning involved, especially from the design side. Our live designers play tons and tons of games of that killer, tons and tons of games. They read threads on the forums.
But how good are they? It doesn't really matter if you're playing tons and tons of games if you're not good. What kind of data will you be gathering for that? This is why they need kind of in-house, well, not even in-house, but people they can reach out to who can play the game at a good level to test this stuff. Doing tons and tons of games with really average players, I really don't know what data they'll be getting for that. It is weird that they don't reach out to good players. I'm pretty sure a lot of good players would, help with it. I'm pretty sure.
They talk to other team members.
I think they'd
talk
like
to
to
the
do that.
community team to get a better idea of what the community is saying. We look at it from all angles. So it takes a while to make these designs. We still don't have an exact date to give you for when they're going to be delivered. Schedules can change. I don't want to tell you anything that's going to change in a few weeks or a month or anything like that. But they are still the next killer updates that you'll see. Work is happening on them right now, and you'll see them as soon as they're done.
Yep. So just really quick, can we rule out that it won't be in this next update, just so we don't get our hopes up?
We traditionally release killer updates on mid-chapter patches, not main chapter patches. So I wouldn't expect to see this in 5.6 or anything like that.
Okay. So real quick break from the questions. I got a small little surprise to share. It's going to be really small, I promise. So let's just take a look.
Oh yeah, this thing with no audio. So I wonder if you just run into them now. Like you just run into them.
I told you it'd be small. But there you go. A very short teaser. We have a Lunar New Year event starting on January 25th. So there you go. Getting right back into things, we have a question from Annie here, who asks, do you plan to add a practice mode, a practice mode against bots to practice killer powers?
Is this one for me or Pat? I don't think we marked it down.
Whoever
But
wants it.
I can take it.
You can do it, Justin. I believe in
I
you.
feel it's a lot of wasted time personally
So
with where they're at right
this is
now.
something that's actually frequently requested on our wish list as something that we're really looking at.
You could just
Nothing
play a
really
match.
planned, not off the table. Edge of the table? I don't know how you put it.
Yeah, in the periphery. Yeah.
All right. So although it sounds simple, it would be a pretty large amount of work to get this kind of thing working, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So although we do have bots in for the tutorial, obviously that's doesn't mean we can just throw them everywhere. There's a lot of things we need to consider. So bots require frequent updates. Whenever you add a new killer power or a new perk, they need to know how to use their powers properly. Survivor bots need to know how to respond to those properly. Same for any perk. They need to know how this perk should react, how the AI should be using it properly. So again, it's not impossible, not something we've written off. There's some other priorities that we're working on, but this is something that is not off the table, just the edge.
Yeah. You can imagine, like, if the bot doesn't know how to play against the pig, for example, you put a reverse bear trap on their head, and they just don't know how to take it off.
Wrong, thank you for
So
the Brie
put a bear
months.
trap on them, and they die.
Wait, what?
They'll
I
never
already
get
have
out
bots
of
on
it.
my team.
So it's something that we have to build to support.
Some
every
people are
single
very
player,
questionable
and that's a
when
lot
you
more
play.
than it seems at a glance.
It would be very interesting to see
Similar
what they do.
question, also about bots from Fantasy, who asks, when a survivor disconnects, can a bot replace them?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one that's been asked to me personally, internally, many times. Our stance on this is that Dead by Daylight is inherently a multiplayer game, and the human element of that is core to the experience. Bots.
His answer to this is very odd. I've heard this before. I do get in the sense that if you put a bot, maybe the killer can abuse that and then get loads of free hooks. But still, would that be detrimental to the whole team? I'm not sure. But the way he responds to it is like, no, people should play, but yeah, but they've DC'd. There's no person there anymore. So it's kind of a weird response, I think.
Are a great tool for teaching. They're great for practicing against, but they will never compete on the same level as a real human being.
Yeah, but they're not there.
So to that end, we have no plans to replace disconnected players with bots.
Yeah. One of the things about bots is that they sound really great on paper, but then that kind of turns when you're on the hook and they're just slowly sneaking towards you, and then they get caught and they start feeding into the killer's pop goes the weasel or pain resonance or something.
I wonder, I've just thought this now, I wonder if they could have, they don't like splitting queues, but kind of a queue which allows you to opt in to joining games already being played. So a random person would actually join where that person is DC'd with the hook states as an opt-in. That could be a little nice idea, and it'd be kind of like a new thing. I don't know. I don't think many people would do it, but at least I'm thinking of stuff.
Then it becomes very frustrating very quickly.
I just thought of it now.
Question from Teofal, who asks, will Year 7 focus more on game health instead of new content?
One give the five, thank you for the
Short answer
5
to that is we are
gifted subs.
continuously
Appreciate
working
it.
on
Very,
both.
very kind.
So we actually have separate teams that handle each of these, so we are able to work on them all simultaneously. I mean, you can imagine we can't throw artists.
Working on both. I think this is kind of a dodge of the question, really. It's like, oh, but we are doing health, so we're not going to spend loads of time doing that because we are doing that with everything else. I think it's a bit of a cop-out response, personally.
And have them directly work on something else. So we do split up different teams of different silos, and we prioritize the work accordingly so that we can keep the game moving forward and keep improving the health of it.
Thank you,
So
1K.
we've actually got tons of game health and quality of life focused content in the pipeline
LLP,
that we
thank you
hope
for
to
the
share with
110
everyone later in the
bits as
summer.
well. Thank
so,
you.
I mean, stay tuned for all of our broadcasts and everything. Like, we are going to be revealing more.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance to find because some people do want that new content. I think even with this mid chapter, you can kind of see, although it was focused largely on quality of life improvements and game health, there were some people just asking, "Where's the content?" So it's totally fair. We try to find the right balance there and give everybody something to look forward to.
I do hear there's also a very cool tome release coming out this time, but
Maybe.
stay tuned.
Question from Freckled Shrike. Does Behavior plan to release more frequent and impactful game health patches like 5.3.0? Before we answer this, I just want to clarify that we don't really consider 5.3.0 to be game health, so to speak. There's a lot of good stuff in that. There's a lot of balance changes, but we consider game health to be more like fixing bugs,
People said they
addressing
wanted to see me
issues,
see it,
quality
so
of life features, things like that.
Yeah, and the response to the large number of changes.
I did a poll on
in
YouTube, so
5.3.0
I'll just
was
watch it all
extremely positive,
and give my
and we know
unfiltered,
that everybody wants more.
Literal
giant patches like that are
off the cuff
extremely hard to make.
viewpoints at this moment. I don't really write scripts and stuff to
the play testing and the
you just see how
balancing
I'm
passes
feeling at
needed,
that point.
There's a lot of iteration. There's a lot
That's how I
of
do
checks
stuff.
and stuff we have to do internally.
I'm just
so
a person.
don't expect to see giant patches like that. Every
A person who's
mid-chapter or
opinionated.
even terribly frequently. But hopefully, it's not the last one like that you will ever see.
Yeah, sometimes we like to have big updates, and sometimes we have to take some time to focus on the mundane things like fixing a bunch of nurse bugs, which probably isn't exciting to most people, but for the nurse players out there, I'm sure that's the greatest thing you've heard all year. It's only about a month into the year, so there's probably not a whole lot you've heard, but you get the point. Next question comes from Fantasy, who asks, can survivor spawn and hex locations be improved? They specifically mentioned survivors spawning close to a generator or to a hex totem.
Yeah, we're always looking at improvements to our procedural generation system.
What's it, 5 of you?
Something we tweak fairly regularly. They're quite hard to do though, and they're really hard to test. Right? Something happens, and
I had an idea with hex totems, which you could just fix without having to be all this like, oh, we need to place this here, we need to do this, and we've talked about it before. If you just had all hex totems just not lit, if you did that, like, that would instantly fix it. You just don't like them. It might be too strong, but it'd be nice to at least see it as an idea, because then they don't need to keep wasting time doing this shit.
1 out of every 500 games. It's tricky for us.
They've been doing this for like years.
To figure out the right way to do it. So yeah, given the nature of the system, those things are slow and a little more difficult to do, but we are always looking at them.
Yeah, there's also a catch here in that if you start adding a bunch of rules for where survivors can't spawn, like if you say you can't spawn near a hex totem, that immediately rules out a big part of the map. And that can create other issues where maybe instead of spawning next to a hex, you spawn right beside the killer. The other thing is that it kind of has a knock-on effect that if I know I didn't spawn near a totem and my teammate over there didn't
there's
spawn next to a
no
totem,
harm trying
that
it.
immediately
Like
rules
in
that
some like
area
little,
out, and I know I don't have to check.
they
that
did.
so
they've said that they've added something where there's like little tests or something. Why don't they just do it in that, and then see if it's too strong? Like, you don't know until you try stuff.
could even make it a little easier sometimes. So it's tricky. We also try to hide those totems better when we update maps. That helps a lot.
Yeah. And just to be clear, just us saying that it's tricky doesn't mean we're not working on it. We are working on it. It just means that it takes time.
For sure. Next question comes from Cabbage. Simply put, just Cabbage. Could we please receive a new roadmap for upcoming features, game health, and balancing?
For roadmaps, usually we drop these around the anniversary. So like our broadcast is around June. Our anniversary, I think, is actually June 16th. Since that's when a new year starts for TBD. I'm not sure if we'll have a physical roadmap this year.
Also, it could be quite nice, just thinking about it. Like, if all hexes weren't lit, that would incentivize survivors to go for totems whenever they see them, which then gives them more objective other than gens, which also gets rid of Noed at the same time, because Noed's quite unhealthy for the game as well. So,
but keep an eye out around then, because that is certainly when we're going to be revealing the new content that we are trying to work on for the following year.
Yeah, the thing with roadmaps is like we have a pretty consistent release schedule at this point, so it's not too surprising.
It'd be nice to see
and
it.
having a little bit of
I don't think we will,
extra flexibility can be kind of nice because it lets us react to things and make changes without having to push something that we promised back.
Roadmap.
Question from Broken Bones. The issue of cheaters, can we get an acknowledgement?
This is why they say it's an arms race.
Cheaters suck. Right? Cheaters suck. We all dislike cheaters. You guys all hate them. I hate cheaters.
How can you be so brave, Pat?
I know,
so brave.
right? Yeah, something so controversial yet so brave. But like, yeah, the thing is, the nature of cheats, hacking, right? That's where most of these cheats come from. That puts us in a bit of a bind as game developers. Anytime you talk about cheating or anti-cheating, you're providing information to the enemy. If you say you've prevented cheating in a certain way or around a certain mechanic, it's like a flare goes up. The cheating community responds by focusing on that specific thing.
It's not bad having
really
some
looking at it
anyway.
hard and finding new ways to break the stuff that you've put in, finding new ways to cheat. It's an arms race. Right? So please, please, please understand that when we are remaining silent about cheating, it's often happening in order to break this cycle, right? In general, we're constantly making small changes and tweaks and improvements under the hood to fight back on cheating. We just don't talk about it for all of those reasons.
I think they need kind
in
of
this upcoming release, we have
a
some,
more
changes
consistent
going to
way
fix
of
that as well,
reporting.
or fix a couple instances.
But
reason
the
why we
epic
don't go
thing
into
they did
specifics in the patch notes is because, again, we don't want to put a target on like this is what we fixed. Go break it again. Follow-up question, very similar as well, from Epic Warhawk. We have any chance for a new anti-cheat system?
So for this one, we're actually going to be changing the, I think it's the EOS is standing for Epic Online Services version of EAC to eventually support the Steam Deck. But we've no plans for a new system beyond that.
Yeah, just a quick note. There's work to be done within the game itself, not just on the anti-cheat. It's also.
I
on
think
us
they are
to
doing
fix those
something.
vulnerabilities as they come up.
I think I'm more
Next question is from
optimistic
Chuck
with
Lit,
them trying
who
to fix
asks,
that because it hurts
any
the game.
plans to slightly slow down gens, especially early game? They give the example of having to find like a special tool to fix the gens.
It is actually quite big. This, if you haven't used Corrupt, and then you do use Corrupt, you do see a big difference just doing something as small as Corrupt Intervention, just blocking a few gens here and there. Doing something really small early game does impact quite a lot. I don't know why they're so scared not to do something. Honestly, it's weird. But this is kind of the same question, isn't it? What they just answered, like with the early game collapse. Don't know why they're answering the same thing again.
We've actually tried mechanics like hunting for special items at the start of the game in the past. I mean, we were talking about the early game stuff earlier in this Q&A, right? That's one of the things that we talked about a lot. And we've tried other similar mechanics as well. Just like those during playtesting, they were pretty resoundingly rejected.
I know cheating's really bad. I really hope these
that most people
next
didn't find to be enjoyable
things they're doing.
That said,
in the next patch,
generator timings and the general slow down 100%. Meta are something that we're talking about right now, and hopefully we'll have more news to share on that as soon.
Yep. Before we get any angry letters, I just want to clarify: are we also looking at the Survivor meta as well?
Oh yeah, we're looking at the meta on both sides.
Oh,
soon.
This is interesting.
More to talk about soon.
You angry
meta.
So the way he says, I remember seeing this, and I might be wrong, but the way I take it is as if they're going to nerf, and then they're saying, "Oh, but you are nerfing some Survivor meta stuff too, right?" Right? That's the way I get it.
Just added a level of complexity that most people didn't find to be enjoyable about the game. That said, generator timings and the general slow down meta are something that we're talking about right now, and hopefully we'll have more news to share on that as soon.
Right, so when he says that, I'm like, oh, so they are thinking about slowing the gens down, etc. But the way Peanuts kind of interrupts and says, we're all looking at Survivor meta stuff too, though, so people aren't unhappy or whatever.
Yep. Before we get any angry letters, I just want to clarify, are we also looking at the Survivor meta as well?
Oh yeah, we're looking at the meta on both.
So what's he mean by that? Do you know what I mean? Like, he seems detached because he's saying, "Oh, we're going to, look into the slowdown of the gens, etc." Oh, but so we don't get angry letters, we're all looking at Survivor meta too. Is he saying that they're going to buff Survivor meta as well? So they're not angry that the killers are getting something good? It feels detached to me. So it's almost like he's saying that this is going to be. It's weird. I don't get the response to what he said. It feels detached. So the killers are getting something good, but so the survivors don't get angry letters when nerfing survivor meta. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to me. I guess. Whatever. I don't know.
Soon. More to talk about soon.
Wait, and what's
Keep
it say?
saying that word. Are we also looking at the survivor meta as well?
Oh yeah, we're looking at the meta on both sides. Soon. More to talk about soon.
You keep saying that word.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
Alex Segrub asks, will we ever see a visual rework for the older Mortys?
So this is certainly something that's in our backlog as something we want to do, but we don't have any specific timeline for it. We would love to show our
just a bit of
killers
polish.
some more love by giving them flashier Mortys. And I think specifically, like we're talking about Trapper, Wraith, Hillbilly, I think they could really use, like we all agreed they could use some love.
Yeah, for sure. I think I speak for all of us when I say please add a bear trap to the Trapper's Mori.
Yeah, we've said
That is
that.
if we retouch it,
Stand on the head
be there.
into the trap.
Someone made an
Bear
amazing
trap, the
mock-up
Trapper.
on Reddit. This was a while back. I can't find the post. I'm sorry.
I think I saw it though, so I think
yeah.
I recall what you're talking about.
He like sets a trap and then puts the survivor in it. I want that.
Stands on the head.
Dwight Fairfield, I don't think that's the real Dwight, asks, is there anything planned for the shape?
Simple answer there. Nothing on the immediate horizon.
Pure and simple. We've sort of moved away from making like big updates to a single killer in an update, and we've started to spread
You guys
those
want more,
changes
is?
around to multiple killers.
Some polish.
One of the things about having
It's not-
26
not,
killers in the game is that if we
priority.
change one of them, we've only changed 1/26th of the game. So we try to make a bunch of smaller changes to.
Slowing chains is done with
killers
more
rather than
dynamic
just
ways to remove survivors from chains and making it alive.
Next question
nothing
comes from Cake Duty.
worse than sitting
During
on
your last
chain
Q&A,
or
you
healing
spoke
for
about some
stamina,
balance
stand
changes
about
made to
the
face
sign, 'cause it's
camping,
changeable.
but couldn't talk more
Visual
about them
features,
yet. Is it
function,
possible to share them with
What
us now?
What would you think then?
I
More
mean, the
objectives
updates on
as
that
in
one,
what?
great question, is we're still working on it. We've got an internal prototype that we're playtesting like now-ish. I think it recently got finished. And
This is what makes me laugh. So, face camping, right? They are pushing the game to kills, which incentivizes face camping. So they're creating this problem, and now they're trying to figure out like how to fix the problem they are creating through their design of balance. It's weird how they don't see that.
we're organizing our playtest to take a look at it, but that's an early prototype, right? So it's still a long way from being completed. Game development, especially on a project the size and complexity of Dead by Daylight, takes a lot of time. We've got a lot going on, and we have to balance those priorities. But we are trying to give you guys hints and tidbits about what we're.
I do have a theory of what they're going to do. They're going to allow it where if you, and it's speculative as hell, like it's really out there. They've only given a few little hints for me to even think something like this. But if you're camping someone for a long enough time with no survivors around, they'll allow that person to jump off and have borrowed time activated on themselves, thus giving them a chance to get to a pallet before the survivor can hit them. The killer can hit them. That's my speculative thing that they're going to think about, because they're already thinking about maybe borrowed time base. So I don't think it's too far-fetched to think of a free jump off the hook. But again, it's speculative. I'm not saying they're definitely doing that.
We're doing sooner than usual.
Yeah, I know you can't tell me what it is, but can you tell me what it isn't? Like, will I be able to fling myself off the hook and drop?
That's why I thought of it. So he says, this is another thing where he says, will I be able to fling myself off the hook? Which, not too crazy, but then he goes,
Kick the killer if he can.
and drop kick the killer. The fuck? That's like so far away, but flinging yourself off the hook isn't. And then he responds,
No killer drop kick.
no killer drop kicks. Didn't talk about the flinging yourself off hook. That's where it kind of came to my head. Now I remember.
Nothing quite as zany as that. No.
Maybe next time. Feel free to use that. From our Japanese community, we have a question from Hikarun, who asks, why do you nerf...
He's joking. Yeah, but he said flinging off the hook, which isn't, I don't think, that far-fetched. I mean, they already have a 4% thing. That's not weird. But then drop kicking the killer, yeah, that's stupid. And he just addresses the stupid thing.
Add-ons of killers who are unpopular or have lower kill rates.
It reminds me of when he responded to, "We are not going to give base DS." It reminds me of that, but in a bit more of a jokey way.
Yeah, it's I've seen that question floating around a lot lately. We often talk about kill rates, as a blanket term. It's a bit of shorthand, but there is obviously a lot of nuance to it, right? Players at different skill levels, MMR, right, perform differently using the same killer. The Twins is actually a really, really good example of this. They're not picked that often, as you saw in the recent, pick rate chart, right? And they're especially not very effective in terms of kill rate at low and mid-tier MMR. But they are absolute monsters at high-end MMR. Some of our players with the absolute highest kill rate in the game right now are playing Twins. They're Twins players.
Which is interesting because Twins playing them the best way is slugging all 4 and then one hooking everyone. And they pretty much camp every hook as well. So they're slugging and camping, which is the strongest way to get more kills. So it does make sense why they would have the highest, or one of the highest. I don't think it'd be the highest. The nurse, I still believe the nurse should probably have the highest. But one of the highest, because the way they play is slugging, camp, slugging, camp. They're one of the biggest sluggers campers in the game. But yeah, again, regarding, because they're doing well at high MMR and then nerfing the add-ons because of that is very odd too. Yeah, I agree.
So buffing add-ons for the Twins doesn't make sense explicitly in a situation like this, because while it might increase the effectiveness of the killer at the low and the mid tier, it will absolutely further their imbalance at the high end of MMR, right? This is the kind of challenges that we're dealing with as game designers all the time. Nerfing them might seem a little bit cruel, but they're add-ons which are boosting the performance of these killers, the Twins, right, in this example, beyond the range that we normally want to see an add-on.
This has the lowest kill rate.
So you look at how often that killer is
I don't think at the
killing
highest rate,
when there's no
MMR
add-ons,
though.
or when
They
there's
haven't showed the
different
MMR
add-ons
stuff,
on,
have they?
and then you look at the kill rate once that
Yet.
add-on's in, and you go, oh, that kill rate goes flying up way too high. That's an example of what we're looking for. In addition to this, it's also worth remembering we did buff some add-ons in this pass, right? We don't just nerf add-ons for these killers. We do buff them, right? Twins, again, example.
Buff the
Iridescent
iridescence or
Pendant
something.
and Baby Teeth were weaker add-ons. They both don't see great correlation with kill rate. So we buffed them. We saw their, you've seen their durations extended significantly in this patch with an aim to make them more appealing, more interesting, and more well-balanced.
Yeah, one other thing about this mid-chapter is that all of the add-on changes that we've done took no programmer time. So we only have a limited bandwidth of time for every department. And when it comes to add-on changes, we had to just pick ones that the designers can go in themselves and tweak the numbers on. Things like Alchemist Ring get brought up a lot, and like a big part of the reason why that wasn't included here is because there's no time to make an actual programming change behind how that add-on works. But yeah, just because we didn't change anything in this update, it doesn't mean that we're not paying attention to it. It's not on our radar. We'll get to it someday, as soon as we can.
Yeah, there's a few add-ons in the game. I don't know if you've noticed.
Just a couple.
Just a
A
couple.
lot of pointless though.
Next question comes from Setsetat, who asks, are you planning on implementing any new game modes?
They're very scared
Yeah,
about
this
that.
is something that's been in discussion for a while internally. We're working on improving our matchmaking overall, but we're also at the same time investigating, there we go, that's a word, the impact of splitting the queue between our main mode and some other hypothetical mode.
They're going to do like a limited
what this other mode would
time
be,
one,
how long
probably
it
to
would
do
be
a test,
available
most
for.
likely.
We want to
Most of
ensure
them.
that we can properly support our players to play the role they choose without having to wait for a substantial amount of time, especially when you add another game mode into the mix. If our current state of matchmaking would be found to break matchmaking queues for those intending to play, the regular game when there are other modes available, then that's not a good thing, right? We got to keep every aspect of the game viable.
So what you're saying basically is that there's a chance.
Really, Pulsar?
Oh, there's always a
Interesting.
chance. A wink.
Yeah, he wrote that wink in.
I think that wink was a little delayed, but we'll take it.
Anyway, Moving on. Shrimpy asks, can we get a little more info on those Survivor solo queue improvements?
I'm gonna have to give everybody's favorite answer in there. We don't have much to reveal about that right now. It's again very early in the design process. It's something that we're looking at and debating internally how we're going to do it. However, this time I'd very much like to encourage everybody to keep making posts on the forums about what you'd like to see in terms of solo queue improvements as a survivor. We really do read them. I read them. Dylan reads them. Everybody reads them. The whole team reads them, right? Justin reads them. There's who's names of other designers on the team I can't remember. Everybody reads the damn things. So please do keep leaving them. They're great. They're super useful information. We want to know what kind of things solo queue survivors are looking at getting to improve their play experience.
Yeah, this is probably like one of the earliest times we've ever shown something like this off. I just really quickly want to shout out 99th Cloud from Reddit, who made an amazing mock-up. I'll put it on screen right now.
Where it shows what your teammates are doing. Killer's been within close proximity to the hook survivor some time. Yeah. As I said, they're pushing solo to Swift, which I think is the wrong way to do it.
There's some great discussions about this. Please keep them coming. They're amazing.
I think it's the other way around. You should be doing
one thing, just to kind of jump on there, like one thing that's really great, like, yeah, it's nice to hear how you guys talk about what would be great for the survivor experience, but what killers think about it as well is also very important. So we're following those discussions very closely, and it's great to see everyone passionately talking about it, because when we do it, we want to do it right.
Yep, for sure. Our next question comes from Poorly Python, who asks, will iridescent shards ever be easier to earn?
Reddit and
so we've begun giving out shards as login rewards more often. I'd say mostly for bigger events, but sometimes for smaller ones, like even during Bone Chill and the login calendar surrounding that, we had some that were given out. But in terms of being easier to
no one will complain about Swift anymore if everyone is a Swift.
So just hang around for events and login rewards when they happen for the best chance to get some quick iridescent shards.
Yeah, the idea behind shards is to give like the super dedicated players out there a way to earn content for free. So while we can be kind of willy-nilly with blood, I've never used that term before. I don't know if you could tell. While we could just give out blood points like they're nothing, we can't do the same for shards because they're a way to get free stuff.
They're gonna do something like them hoods. 100%.
They have to be tightly controlled. The next question comes from Jemalaski, who asks, can you let us know which maps have the most escapes and kills? Not Patrick.
I've seen it, yeah. Fira.
Can the people have more stats?
Again,
I'm showing them anyway.
I guess.
Yeah, so the Killingus map is surprising.
This is so meaningless. This is so meaningless. Like, how do they look at this and just understand, yeah, this is giving me loads of data on everything? Why? Well, this could be 2 hooks or 10 hooks. And this could be, what, 3 hooks to 10 hooks or something? Or 3 hooks to 11 hooks or something? Like, I don't get anything from this. As someone who's like analytical, I don't really learn anything here.
Midwich Elementary School.
Just overall, there's probably more hooks happening on this one than this. Most likely. That's what, yeah.
Killingus? Okay.
It's not a word. I made it up for this.
I feel like that's a word.
If it's not, it is now.
I mean, Fractured Cowshed is a very badly designed map.
I accept that one.
Yeah, it's about 50%. So if you're going to 1v1 someone...
That's why people say 1v1 me on Cowshed. And he says
1v1
this for some reason.
Cowshed. There you go.
No, he says...
yeah, the meme came true, I guess.
The meme came true. Like, no, this is a really badly designed map. That's why people say that, because it's really good for Survivor. So it's not that the meme came true. That was kind of like why it was created.
Next question comes from Majura, who asks, what is the killer and Survivor player distribution? They say that queue times for Survivor for them seem shorter during the day than they do at night.
Okay, he just says loads
that
of.
doesn't surprise me. He forced
he can't
really
say
the
anything.
dick
I remember this.
Crazy,
He can't
it's
say anything.
probably true.
This he says is
having
ego
a
thing.
visible MMR is something that will absolutely lead to a lot of toxic elitism.
Maybe he doesn't play this game, but there's definitely a lot of toxic elitism in DVD.
We don't want to encourage that kind of mentality in the community. What we do want is to have a way for our more competitively minded gamers to get feedback on their standing within the game, something a little bit more meaningful than the current grade system is. And we want to do that eventually. As with many other things, it's not at the top of our list at the moment, but it is something that is being worked on.
Yeah, we also have to acknowledge that there's some people out there who don't want to see that number.
Yeah.
Some people get stressed out when they have a bad match and they see that go down, and it just really upsets them. So there's two sides to it. I don't think anyone's really wrong, but we got to keep both sides in mind there.
Yeah, absolutely.
How could you get upset with losing
Next
MMR
question
on
comes from
DVD?
Michaela Wants Your Boon. Love that name. Are you planning on wrapping up the Realm Beyond by the 6th anniversary?
So the very short answer is just nope. We got a few maps that are remaining that we still like to tackle, and it's going to take some more time to work on.
Yeah, they're a ton of work, and the anniversary seems really far off for everyone else. It's like 6 months away. Not even 5 months, I guess. But to us, like, it's right around the corner. Like, we're about to start working on stuff. All right, so before we go on to the next question, we have something a little different. We have a giveaway. One of the pieces of
I ain't
feedback
done
that we
this.
get pretty often is that we did top right corner and enter the code lights camera BP, and you will win 100. I
What's
have a
camera
question
BP?
from Mooks, who asks, are you planning on running more experimental test runs similar to the weekend with
They could
Disabled
test so much
Bloodlust?
stuff, man.
Right now, we don't have anything.
Also, kind of interesting, they did a test a while ago disabling Bloodlust, and they haven't said anything about it. It must have been horrific. It must have been horrific. They haven't said anything. Can you remember that? They didn't. I'm pretty sure they haven't said the results at all. It's just disappeared.
Planned. Like, we just don't have anything we need to do a big game-wide test like that on. It's worth noting, however, in the upcoming patch, we've added a beta tab to try out some new feature
They talk
ideas
about it
in
here,
there,
do
some things that are a little bit more reduced in scope. So if we ever have something worthy of like a test like that, the Bloodlust one. There's the word. Too many blood-related things in this game. I get confused. I almost said Blood Rush, and I know that's not the right one.
Did they say what happened?
If we ever have something big like the Bloodlust test to do again, we will absolutely do it. We just don't
Oh, they
have
don't.
one that we want to do.
Well,
right now.
that's what I'm on about.
Yeah,
They
sure.
haven't said
So if
anything
it's something
about
that
it.
just affects you, it's more likely going to end up in the beta tab.
We have no
If it's something that affects everybody,
results.
chances are we'll do like a full
Ever.
weekend like we've done.
It's
with
just
Bloodlust
disappeared.
in the past.
Yeah, that's the general split, right? The betas are for things that, generally speaking, are more immediately impactful on yourself,
Zetsu.
like the Wiggle.
Unless maybe I
beta
missed
that
one
we
where
had
they
on the
showed
PTB
it.
and will be coming out with the next release as well. So things that are more reduced in scope or impact just you are go in the beta tab. Game-wide tests that really impact play balance and how other people have to respond to you, those need to be turned on or off for everyone. Those are the ones we save for the big community-wide tests.
Yep. All right. Next question comes from Maximo, who says, any plan to rework the perk system in the future?
Perk system?
They specifically mention a point-based system where
Oh.
weaker perks cost less points to equip.
That's actually kind of interesting, that. I think they just say no. But it is kind of interesting. Like, if you figure out what the meta perks are, this would be a way to push people to go to more perks as well. Because you won't all be able to just use all the meta perks. You'll have to think, okay, which one do I want? It's actually not a bad idea. It would be more strain on these people because they need to make sure the balance is working and they need to follow it quite closely. But it's not a bad idea. But it does put more work on them. Yeah. I think it's because it puts too much work on them. I don't think it's a bad idea, personally, though. I wouldn't mind trying it. They could do it as a test. Again. I think they just
There's
said
no
anyway.
plans to rework the perk system in that kind of a way beyond the stuff that we talked about, teased really previously about progression system overhauls.
Yeah. So the 4 perk system's kind of limiting by design as well. You're not meant to just toss on an endless amount of perks to make you good at just about everything. It really kind of forces you to pick what you want to specialize in.
Yeah, the meta shit.
The other thing is that if something's standing out from the pack, we'd rather balance that perk and bring it closer in line rather than creating a new system.
Borrowed Time, Dead Hard. Well, I mean, this for clothes, but what were the big ones? Borrowed Time, Dead Hard, DS. Let's just say them three. There's probably more. They are still meta. There's way more, but they are still meta. Adrenaline's decent, but they're like really strong. So saying, and how long has that been? Like years. So saying that they'd rather balance them than create this system, you're not doing that, are you? Like they've been the most picked perks for
just to accommodate
years.
All right. Next question is from Cryptos, who asks, "Will we ever be able to change the lobby background?"
So this one certainly comes up from time to time. Short answer is no. We're not planning to add.
Any reason why they can't do this, by the way? This seems like a nice little, just little fun thing. Is there any reason why they can't do this? Like they've got everything there, haven't they? It's all designed. Does anyone know why this would be hard to do?
That I know we all have our favorite lobbies from past chapters and events. I mean, as someone who's like working with the events teams on some of those and seeing the ones for chapters, they're super cool.
Yeah.
And we tend to do just.
Which I find quite funny is like, no, we can't do that, but let's all like reminisce on our favorite ones, what we can't use.
Do those themed lobbies tying into whatever's going
I remember
on at
this.
the moment.
I
So it
laughed.
ties everything that's going on, makes the game feel alive.
Which one did you like?
And makes it feel special, even when you're just queuing up. And just trying to make those ones is already a significant amount of work.
Yeah. So I guess my question for you guys is, what's your favorite lobby from the past? Kind of putting you on the spot here, so I'll go first, and I'll just say I like the Winter Solstice one with the bells and the background music and everything.
You know the lobbies you can't have? Yeah.
Still nostalgic for that
I
one.
like them.
That's a gooder.
I think I go way back to when the gravestones for Halloween were the names of the devs. I think that was before I was even here. That's really a deep cut.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of All Kill and Silent Hill in chat.
Yeah, I love that.
Also
All
makes
Kill
sense.
All
Yeah.
Kill was real nice.
I still want him after that. That's awesome. Okay. We have another question from Nocturne, who asks, "Are you looking at doing some quality of life changes for the twins anytime soon?"
The twins. Another twins question.
Should I do the banner?
I think you have a banner. Yeah, I think you have a disclaimer to help me. Okay, there we go. Not in the next update. You have been warned. Okay. The twins come up in discussion regularly, and they are likely to be the next killer to see
need toilet
love
really bad.
after the Ghostface and Legion updates that we were talking about previously. This is not coming anytime soon. Look at the banner. Look at the banner. Not coming anytime soon. Please don't freak out that it's not in the next patch or anything.
I'm gonna run.
The
Keep
twins
watching.
changes are going to take a lot of time. There's a lot to do with the twins, specifically due to the nature of the killer, to clean up a lot of the friction points that people are experiencing, to take into account a lot of the feedback we're getting. It's going to take time. It's tricky. Will be done. Not anytime soon.
All right, then. Next question we have is from two people, actually. We have a very similar question from Tanner and Jemalaski, who ask, "How do you consider what's a priority to change and update and what's not?"
Yeah, specifically in regards to game balance stuff, right? We look at both quantitative and qualitative data, two keywords that are quite long and hard to say. So quantitative data from quantity, right? That's stuff like just raw numbers that we track over thousands or even millions of matches. For example, when a killer uses a specific perk in a match, how much does that impact the kill rate? Do they kill 5% more than when they don't use the perk? Do they kill 20% more? Do they kill less? That happens sometimes. You see perks that make it so you actually kill less when they're really poorly balanced, right? So we compare use rates like that to MMR as well. Perks that are used more often at high MMR are likely strong and result in more wins, hence the climb up the MMR ladder. These are just some examples. There's tons and tons more stats that we look at, lots of different things. I'm just giving you a taste of some of the really obvious ones that are kind of interesting. Qualitative data, quality is more personal and more individual. It's more subjective. For stuff like this, we read the forums, right? We talk to players. We do deep dives into the practical use of perks in typical matches. Really, try to understand not how they're performing, but how they feel. Designers play with the perk. We play against it exclusively. We watch lots of streams. We really just gather the individual anecdotal
I was really
data
holding. Regarding the twins,
data.
is it just the twins?
Experiencing to take into
So regarding that, which you just saw,
specifically in regards to like game balance,
they say that it was going to be more fun or something, right?
Quantitative and qualitative data, two keywords that are.
What did they say? I missed the best part. Oh, okay, shall I go back? From what I remember with the twins, is they said that they're making them more fun or something. But I'm thinking once again they're thinking for the survivor, because twins aren't too fun to go against in their playstyle. It's a lot of slugging, it's a lot of camping. So I'm assuming it's going to be more fun to go against for survivor, is what they're aiming for. Not more fun for the twin player. But we'll see. I don't know.
Quantity, right?
Just a guess.
That's stuff like just raw numbers that we track over thousands or even millions of matches.
They didn't
For
say
example,
fun for who. Yeah.
when a killer uses a
I remember it.
perk in a match, how much does that impact the kill rate? Do they kill 5% more than when they don't use the perk? Do they kill 20% more? Do they kill less? That happens sometimes. You see perks that make it so you actually kill less when they're really poorly balanced, right? So we compare use rates like that to MMR as well. Perks that are used more often at high MMR are likely strong and result in more wins, hence the climb up the MMR ladder. These are just some examples. There's tons and tons more stats that we look at, lots of different things. I'm just giving you a taste of some of the really obvious ones that are kind of interesting. Qualitative data, quality is more personal and more individual. It's more subjective. For stuff like this, read the forums, right? We talk to players. We do deep dives into the practical use of perks in typical matches. Really, try to understand not how they're performing, but how they feel.
It looks like they might be nerfing Dead
Play
Hard.
against it exclusively. We watch lots of streams. We really just gather the individual anecdotal data rather than looking at just raw stats, right? When you think that we're just looking at raw stats, no, it's just part of the overall picture that we're bringing together here. The list of what we need to tweak is actually extremely fluid. We're always moving things around on it and trying to be as flexible as possible. We generally maintain a hit list of perks and add-ons and mechanics and things like that that need to be adjusted. But we change that list because the game is constantly changing and new things come out.
I'd love to see that
Sometimes
list.
we're working on something that'll take a while. Oops, new patch comes out, it's introduced a balance change that necessitates immediate action, pushes something else down the list. So it's actually really dynamic.
If they keep changing that, it'd be nice for them to like tweet out every week what's their hit list at the moment, just to see kind of where their head's at.
Yeah, we also have some
Quite
pretty
nice
nifty
insight.
charts that show how often something's used compared to how well it's performing, and that's a great way to kind of spot at a glance something that might become a problem in the future, even though people aren't really complaining about it right now.
Absolutely.
So next question we have, this isn't me saying this is just the person's name. Xenomorph for DVD asks, have you ever thought about revisiting a chapter? So adding a survivor or a map to something that didn't already have one.
I realized we kind of actually, we kind of answered like at least our personal opinions on this a bit earlier when we were talking about lobbies. But we've touched on this in the past, and I think we'd all love to see a map based on the all-kill lobby. I think that one was pretty obvious.
Oh, okay.
Not planned for the moment, but we won't rule it out for the future. It's not a super definitive answer, but yes, we've thought about it.
We've thought about
It's
a lot
all
of
based
stuff.
on what like the level art and level design, bandwidth and resources that we have. So again, not to rule it out. Could happen.
I wonder.
Nothing
This
set in
isn't to
stone.
do with this because it's kind of getting to filler questions. I feel. I wonder if they're ever going to actually show like what killer's doing good at what MMR. I know they'll do this stupid kill stuff, but I am kind of curious still.
Yeah, I think it's also fair
I'd
to
love
say
to
that
see
if we
Hooks.
were to do something like
Oh
this, it'd
my
probably
god!
be
Could you imagine?
Hooks.
Could,
We
like,
wouldn't wanna,
could you imagine if they showed like the MMRs, right? And with hooks, it just went like this. Like you'd see just it like this is the most hooks, this is the least, and it just goes like this, right? But kills are like this. Do you know what I mean? I'd love to see like the how it'd look. I that's what I kind of think. I think if you have like a graph here, right? I think it'd be like a curve in hooks. but the kills would be like around similar. Maybe something like this.
Just go, hey, we're gonna do this, and then
I'd love to
it just
see that
comes out
data.
like 6 months from now or something. That wouldn't be exciting. Next question comes from Big Chap Alien, who asks, "Can we get a search bar for perks?"
You know, without going
It's
into
okay.
specifics, we've been looking at the
Quality of
flow
life.
of equipping perks, and we've got a few very
Just quality of life.
I understand where it's coming from. So first of all,
Match with are sometimes iridescent grade, and I'm overwhelmed. Is skill
Is it really working if the grades are so different? Yeah, the grades have zero link to it, so it won't matter.
skill-based matchmaking really?
There's no attachment.
here it's balanced remertized when in this case we would killer out of
Well, if you have lobby, do you have a plan to give killers BP or XP when they're matched with a survive with friend group for motivation?
Forgot what they said here.
So it's something that I know we've discussed about internally at one point or another, but there's not.
So they know going against a Swift is a less fun experience if they've had a conversation thinking, should we award the killer more BP for them to go against this less fun experience? They've actually had conversations around this. They've just admitted it.
Nothing currently planned. I think it's something that's better to look at is, how do we properly compensate and deal with that?
Compensate? How do we compensate the killer for going against a Swift? Like, these words they're using, to me, show they understand this isn't a fun experience.
And I think, like if we were to give, survivors more, indication of what others are doing, okay, how do you make it fair for the killer as well? And so there's other ways I think we can be dealing with that. And I think even just adjusting how the matchmaking works would be a better way. But again, nothing planned. But discussions are going on, for ways that can balance a killer better if they are going against the group.
Yeah, the idea is more to close that gap so it's not something you need to reward for. Rather,
From what I understand, they've probably had the conversation and they've just said to themselves, we won't balance it towards Swift. What we'll do is we'll just grab solo to get to Swift level and then balance from there. That's what it looks like, to be honest. I don't know. It's almost like it's talking back in the time when they were thinking about ideas, and then Peanuts is like, no, we've got this idea. This is what we're doing.
rather than just
That's what it looks
tossing blood
like.
points at it and pretending that the problem's not there.
Wait.
The idea is more to close that gap so it's not something you need to reward for, rather than just tossing blood points at it and pretending that the problem's not there.
Pretending the problem's not there. This is why it's so weird when I talk about Swift and people are like, what are you on about? Like, even the devs are saying, like,
Next
there's
question
an imbalance here.
can you
They're calling
let
it a
players
problem.
know when they get a thumbs up and maybe give them some BP for it as well?
So I think we've actually discussed a bit about improving
bad
this
idea.
whole system in terms of, I'll generally say, like rewarding or endorsing other players.
Yeah.
But there's currently no plans to actually change it.
That incentivizes just nice people. Just incentivizes just, a nicer, pushing towards a nicer community. I think you just said they're not going to do it, though.
But maybe in the future, we're looking at ways we can encourage positive reinforcement through players, and so that's kind of where our minds are at.
Yeah, for sure. Much bigger fish to fry.
What's
for the
wrong with
moment.
you?
But
Like, why
it's
does he
definitely
keep
something that's on the wish list, I would say.
tripping over his tongue?
Has a perk ever been scrapped because it's too
The thing is, I probably won't notice it as much, but he always goes, so it makes it like a bigger event.
powerful, weak, or funny? And if we have the reason to, then they'd love to know.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, truth is, I'm going to try not to say soon anymore in this answer. Let's see.
Probably a take. It's not a take. I've got takes.
The truth is that most of our crazy perk ideas die really, really early in the design process. Our designer, we'll have a brainstorm. A designer will throw out a perk idea, and someone will just go, "Oh, here's an obvious problem with that. Here's an obvious issue, or that thing is going to be really OP if you use it with something else, or what have you." Or the alternative happens, the complete other side, is when somebody says, "Oh,
Filler again. It's almost like talking about the same thing.
doesn't mean it's off the table, but we're just not talking."
Random ass question.
This a lot. So we've
There we go.
Do you plan to increase the 1 million BP cap?
So, man, we've really been thinking about this one recently because we hear this a lot. So we've been trying to think what value the cap is actually bringing us at this point. For now, I can really only say that blood points, like any blood points you get from promo codes, login gifts, the season grade rewards will never count towards this cap and always let you surpass it until you. I think we mentioned this earlier as well. As soon as you do surpass it with one of those, you do have to drop back down before you can naturally gain BP. But if you wanted to surpass it and keep on using promo codes, those would keep on piling up.
We've had an idea here for the BP cap, by the way. You know Devotion, how it doesn't really do anything? Each level of Devotion adds 100k onto the BP cap. So you're actually getting something for playing more. You're getting, you know, a bigger cap, basically. A higher cap. I don't know why they don't do that. It just seems like such a nice thing. Right? We've had that idea for like about a year now or whatever. Like near enough as soon as Devotion came out, about a month or so after. They could just do that. I don't know why they don't. I think we've got such good ideas that we've come up with through. You know,
we used to be like really
through
dead
the
set
years.
against removing the cap, but I think it's open to discussion now, especially now that we're giving like up to 2 million points a month. Maybe the time has come.
Maybe
you
it's
know?
time to do
Yeah,
the
I would say if
Devotion
we're always
idea.
giving these what we call bonus blood points that surpass the cap, why have a cap at all? So that's why the discussion is kind of coming back up again, of like, well, why not?
For sure. Another question from our Japanese community. Never mind. From our Russian community. I lied.
It's the same question.
From
Well, I guess it's a
Eagle
bit different. It's a buff to the
Eagle
killers
Leaf.
now, not
I'm
BP.
sorry, I butchered your name. Are there plans to buff killers who struggle against Survive with Friends?
Not really. We generally try to avoid balance changes to individual killers specifically for their performance against
feel this is
Survive
gonna
with
be
Friends
filler.
or solo survivors or anything like that. And the main reason why we avoid doing it specifically for how they handle Survive with Friends is because that tends to lead to that killer being overpowered when facing off against solo survivors. So the goal is to just have them be balanced across the board, but we generally don't target killers that are already out just because of Survive with Friends kind of balancing stuff.
Yeah, again, like we mentioned before, we try to avoid doing things specifically for Survive with Friends. The goal is really to close that gap so you don't need to in the first place. I also think we kind of take that into consideration while we're designing killers and stuff these days. We try to think about what kind of effect it would have in a solo group versus Survive with Friends. All right, next question, and I'm very sorry for this one. We take the most upvoted questions, and Felix taking
everyone.
off the rest of his
Taking
community.
Oh,
Probably be the scariest.
that is
thing
some
to do that.
so
maximum
this is
Canadian
interesting.
reach.
I forgot about this one, and this is one I was going to talk about before.
Okay, so the last question we have is from Standemic over from our Russian community.
Can people remember why they added Endgame collapse? Can people actually remember? I remember. Because as I say, I've been playing since beta. Survivors used to hijack the game. Hatch standoffs. No. Couldn't you kick the hatch? I'm pretty sure you could kick the hatch at this time, couldn't you? No, you could. I'm pretty sure you could close that. Couldn't you close the hatch at this time? I'm sure it was the hostage taking. You couldn't close the hatch. Okay, so I guess it's so survivors couldn't hijack, but also the hatch standoff didn't last, forever. I guess if you couldn't kick it back then, because if you didn't know, with the hatch standoff, the survivor, if they were healthy, if you hit them, could then get the hatch. But if they jumped, the killer could grab them, and you couldn't close the hatch. So you just stand there looking at each other. It was a standoff. So I guess they created this for the hatch, which seems weird. Why wouldn't you just have the closed hatch in hindsight, right? But also, survivors would hijack the game and just hide at the very end and just keep your game hostage. So they were the reasons why they created this, really. They could have pushed it into more interesting stuff, but it doesn't look like they want to, as you'll see.
Would the endgame collapse system be reworked somehow? It's easy to control from the survivor side by leaving the gates almost powered so survivors don't feel any oppression from it.
It's a good question.
Patrick said in one live Q&A that they tried a kills and escapes system and it didn't work. Now he's saying that it works. Huh. I don't know if that's true or not. I can't remember that Q&A. I don't watch
The
all the
endgame
Q&As
collapse isn't supposed to really be oppressive. It exists to prevent stalemate scenarios. So before the endgame collapse was in DVD, there were lots of situations and lots of times where the game would kind of end in a stalemate. The survivors would be hidden, and the killer would be in a perfect defensive position, standing over the hatch or something like that, and no one would really move. Right? There's to no one's.
If the killer's standing on the hatch, though, they could just escape, though, right? I can't remember. I can't remember exactly what it was like.
Benefit to move around, so you'd end up in this gross stalemate kind of situation. The EGC adds a time pressure, right? It forces one side, in this case the survivors, to make a play and to make decisions and to do something where previously they would just hold still indefinitely. So this just keeps the game moving towards an inevitable conclusion. So with that in mind, the endgame collapse works great. It does that thing, and we have no plans to change it.
Yeah, and if you ever do want the survivors to be up against the clock, you can open it yourself.
Question to you guys: when you play killer, or even as survivor, maybe it's just I think it's a lot less fun with killer. When all 5 gens are done and you've got one person on a hook, do you enjoy waiting at the hook, waiting for someone to come for borrowed time, and then just keep trading until either you mess up or they mess up, or would you like it where once the last gen is done? Endgame, like the endgame collapse starts then, and then when you get someone on a hook, you don't really have to wait there that long. You might just get that one kill and the game's over. You can move on. Like, do you enjoy waiting at the hook? I don't. I don't find it too fun. It's the time that you camp as well, because there's no else you can do. I'm asking that because I know my thoughts on it. Well, I won't read that yet. You go to the gates, so you just let them escape, do you? With Bubba, yeah. Because my idea, I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy just waiting at the hook, waiting for the inevitable, borrowed time conga line attempt, right? Which with a lot of the killers is actually uncounterable if they do it right, if you didn't know. My kind of like thing would just be when they do the 5th gen, endgame collapse starts. And then once you put someone on a hook, they've only got like half the time to really go. Maybe they can go for one save. If they get that, awesome. If they don't, everyone leaves and the game finishes. I'd like that. Sometimes I've had games where they've finished the match in like 3 or 4 minutes, and then 10 minutes of the match has just been me waiting at hooks, trading at the end. But yeah, that's kind of like a more personal thing, maybe.
And that'll start the clock and let you use Blood Warden, for example. All right, so that's the end of our Q&A part. Just a quick recap of the news. We have
there we go.
A Circle of Healing nerf on the way.
There we go. We got
That's
through it all.
right there.
Someone said I missed something. Missed something important.
Survivors, right?
I don't think I did.
Yeah, but I think it's open to discussion now, especially now that we're giving like up to 2 million points a month. Maybe the time has come. You never know.
I would say if we're always giving these what we call bonus blood points that surpass the cap.
For you there, Justin. Don't worry.
Right.
I'll take it. Good game. Next map.
All right. I would say just like change your underwear daily.
That's solid. That's solid advice.
At least rotate, like flip it inside or out. I mean.
Yeah, the last. They're being disgusting. Last when the last gen is done, endgame collapse. We've had that idea for very, very long as well. Anyway, cool. There you go. I watched it, commentated, as you said. I always take forever doing them because I just do it off the cuff. All right, let's jump on. Kill the survivor rotation, give builds if you want, etc., etc. See how we do. All that good stuff. I play in a more fun manner where I like going for chases and stuff. Because forcing them kills, I don't know. It's never been appealing to me, and it never will be. So I'm gonna play in a bit more of a fun way. I'll still go for some, if they're close to dying, I might just wait there for like 10 seconds or 15 seconds or something, but I'm not just going to base my whole gameplay off that. Why did they talk about underwear? One of them were trying to be funny, I think. Saying flip your underwear inside out. Your conclusion is the game is what the devs are delusional. They're very stubborn on kills for data, and I think kills for data is very bad. I know that it's rooted with the psychological thinking that kills are the win, which makes sense. You would think, you know, you've killed them and you've won, but it's only because of how we've kind of condition ourselves to look at the game. Like if we look to the game where it's like a pain meter, right, and it's the suffering of the survivors, and oh, they've escaped but they've suffered, right? If that was conditioned more, you wouldn't think about the escapes or the kills. It's the suffering that's caused, and the more hooks you do, the more hits you have, the more suffering, you know. But again, it's conditioning. Conditioning's very strong. We don't have this mindset now. We have the mindset of kills, right? Yeah.